just in time. Well, today we are going to learn about the challenges of programming an international network, one that reaches 250 million young people around the world. You're watching some clips right now from MTV, and we're going to be talking to its international president, Bill Roedy. He'll join us live from our London bureau, and he's going to tell us about some changes MTV announced today in the way the network will operate around the international theater. We will be talking to the president of MTV International from our London bureau. There he is right now. Well, imagine this, running a network that reaches almost 200 million households around the world. Our next guest is Bill Roedy. He is president of MTV Europe, and faster than you can say Kamat Hayakataki, we're going to go to London right now. He's in our London bureau, standing by, president also of MTV International. Welcome.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you very much.
How are you today?
Wonderful. It's tonight in London, but
yes,
that's okay.
I should say good evening, in fact, and I understand you have some news for us today about MTV programming.
Major investment in the business, overall business, actually amounting to millions and millions of dollars. We've been working on it for some time. Just announced it today, even though we've been working on it for a few months. And basically, it's a programming investment, it's a technology investment, and it's an organizational infrastructure investment that takes us much more to the regional level. It's really called the Regional Expansion Plan to augment already the very successful international strategy. I mean, that's really it in a nutshell.
Well, how is this regional programming then going to affect the music industry?
Well, I think the music part of it is actually a particularly good part, because one of our objectives really since day one has been to break acts internationally, particularly on the international environment. We like to get away from the domination of Anglo-American music, which has been traditionally where music has come from, at least for the last 40 years. So MTV works very hard to break music outside England and America, and the regional expansion will enable us to skew playlists much more closely to a particular region, and therefore bring in the local music and expose it to audiences that otherwise wouldn't have a chance to see it or hear it.
There will be small bands in some garage in China, for example, that will now have a chance to be discovered because of this.
Yeah, I mean, in Asia, it's probably going to take a little longer, although there's one group that one artist that we're already very high on. Her name is Dada Wah. She's Chinese. She's compared to an Enya from Ireland, and she's already done actually quite well outside China. In Europe, it's actually much more common, and we've done it for many years now, have gotten behind bands and groups in all parts of Europe, exposed them to countries in Europe that otherwise wouldn't see them, and then also around the world, and particularly the big music market of the United States.
Right, so although you're doing this, you're enhancing the regional programming of each nation, you expect that the effect will be to have kind of a globalization of music then? That here in America, you know, on the top 20 list could be bands from, we'll say, Latin America, all over the world.
Ironically, America is probably one of the more insular markets, so I think it's going to take some time to break in America. Typically, European, Asian, and even Latino markets are a little bit more open to other music. But basically, our strategy internationally has been to focus on the region from day one. We started in 1987 in Europe, designing the entire operation to reflect the local audience, including programming, people, DJs, and music. And then we did that in Latino and Asia. What this does is take it one step further and get even closer to the people in the specific countries. And the whole philosophy of MTV, by the way, worldwide, is to match that emphasis on the local side, particularly musically, but also production, match it with the bigger picture, the international window, which is unique to MTV, and which we can do because we now have MTVs all around the world.
Well, and I must say that I was surprised to learn that you were the largest broadcaster in the world.
I think we're actually bigger than CNN. I think we're bigger than CNN.
Well, we won't say that on this show, but tell us a little bit about your strategy that's not music programming, some of the original programming.
Yeah, well, we increasingly have shows that are non-music related, but basically in the international environment, somewhat unlike a domestic environment, the core of the programming is music and will remain music. But MTV, of course, now, as we all know, or anyone who's watched the service over the last couple of years, knows that it's evolved into a service that's much more than music videos. And in fact, many channels are coming up around the world to program music videos. What brings MTV to a whole different dimension, we like to think, is the bond that we establish with our audience. And we do that in a number of different ways. but it's the brand and what the brand stands for. It's an attitude, it's a certain lifestyle, so it brings in many different elements. It could be information-based, it could be news-based. Increasingly, it's pro-social issues, and in the States, many people are probably familiar with the election that we get involved in, the Choose or Lose campaign. We're actually doing that also internationally. We've done it in Europe. We just did an election campaign in China, strangely enough, in Taiwan, where we had all the candidates on. We've done that in Europe. 2 years ago, for example, we had Gorbachev on the channel in a pro-vote campaign, ironically, a former communist talking to our audience how important it was to vote, and that was very impactful for us. So that's part of the overall bond that we establish with the audience, which is very important and establish us as a channel that's much more than music videos.
Now, is the competition abroad fiercer than it is here in the States for MTV?
Channels absolutely everywhere. I mean, it's somewhat flattering, I suppose, because almost every day a new channel launches. The good news for us is it tends to be flattering because the channels tend to be very imitative of MTV. They're almost like clones of MTV. And often the channels don't compete with us. I mean, of course, there is some overlap and there are some competitive environments, but often many of these channels, and they literally are in the hundreds now, fill a niche that we can't fill. And what MTV brings to a local audience, again, first and foremost, we emphasize the local programming, but what we bring that other channels cannot is this glimpse to the international window, the bigger picture. But we have to be careful.
I have to ask you really quickly, because then we have to go, but I know that you were a general before this career. Are there some synergies between being a general and having this career now?
I wasn't quite a general. I did go to West Point.
Well,
I had
we promoted you.
6-year military career, thank you very much, but actually my biggest promotion is I had a child last week, and that's at 47 years old, my first child. That was my big promotion.
Terrific. Congratulations to you, and thank you for joining us from London today.
Okay, thank you.
That was Bill Roedy. He's president of MTV Europe. After a week's absence, Max Robbins, our intrepid entertainment reporter, is back with us. And Max has some late news on MTV as well as CBS. He joins us live from our Midtown New York City bureau. Welcome back, Max. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here, Sue. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Let's start with MTV. Expansion plans in the works. Tell us about it.
Well, indeed. They're about to embark on a big expansion internationally in Europe, Asia, and in Latin America, too. I mean, they're already in all those markets, but they're really going to put some more capital in and really try and expand their reach.
What's behind that? Is it that the MTV phenomenon has caught on in Latin America and Europe, and there's their own variety of that? Or?
Well, they have a pretty good business internationally, but there's plenty of room for growth. They're also feeling a little bit of heat from competition. For example, in Europe, a consortium of major record labels have started a competitor that's had some success as well. So they're basically saying, hey, let's grow this before we get caught off guard.
Do they? The bottom line for them, though, do they have the capital and the money to do that as aggressively as it sounds as though they're doing it, or is this going to hurt them near term?
Well, I think they do have the resources. They have the
much into the international expansion?
Well, I really don't think so. Look, this is really their meat and potatoes here in America, and as we told your viewers a couple weeks back, they have expansion plans here as well. MTV is a real growth pattern in terms of revenues, and they want to keep that going. So I think they realize they got to spend some money to make some money.
Now on to CBS.
MTV will implement a new plan for its international programming to achieve a more regional flavor. The network will incorporate local personalities, languages, and programming into each country it broadcasts in. MTV is the largest broadcast and cable network in the world, reaching over 250 million households. MTV Chairman Tom Freston explains how he believes the strategy will boost his bottom line.
We do feel that we'll be seeing a lot of incremental revenue from it rather soon, because this gives us the ability to better serve our advertisers. In many ways, we're still selling the pan-regional idea, but if you have advertisers now that don't have a product available throughout the region, prior to this, they would not want to advertise with you. Now they can in many cases, because we can offer them sort of national availabilities, country by country or region by region.
This is also a reflection of the rise of a lot of local bands, Chinese, Indian, other bands that are competing for the ears of the world's youth.